They say you can tell everything about a person in the first 30 seconds. I used to believe that. Then I met him at 2 a.m. in a gas station parking lot, and every rule I thought I knew shattered like glass under his boots. He was bald, covered in tattoos that crawled up his neck like stories he'd never tell, and his hands, rough, scarred, were holding my broken car door like it weighed nothing. I should have been terrified. I should have called someone. Instead, I let him drive me home. I didn't know he'd been out of prison for exactly 3 weeks. I didn't know that helping me would violate his parole. I didn't know that the second I looked into those tired, honest eyes, I'd stop caring what anyone else thought. All I knew was this: the most dangerous thing I'd ever done was trust him, and I'd do it again. You will feel so many emotions in this story of second chances and forbidden love. Please support us by clicking subscribe to the channel. They say you can tell everything about a person in the first 30 seconds. I used to believe that. Then I met him at 2 a.m. in a gas station parking lot, and every rule I thought I knew shattered like glass under his boots. He was bald, covered in tattoos that crawled up his neck like stories he'd never tell, and his hands, rough, scarred, were holding my broken car door like it weighed nothing. I should have been terrified. I should have called someone. Instead, I let him drive me home. I didn't know he'd been out of prison for exactly 3 weeks. I didn't know that helping me would violate his parole. I didn't know that the second I looked into those tired, honest eyes, I'd stop caring what anyone else thought. All I knew was this: the most dangerous thing I'd ever done was trust him, and I'd do it again. You will feel so many emotions in this story of second chances and forbidden love. Please support us by clicking subscribe to the channel. It started with a broken-down Honda and a dead phone battery on the worst night of my life. I'd just walked out on my controlling boyfriend, Michael, with nothing but my purse and the clothes I was wearing. 3 years of my life wasted on a man who thought love meant ownership. The gas station felt like the edge of the world, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like angry wasps, empty highways stretching into darkness on all sides, and me standing there in the cold November air trying not to cry. My car door wouldn't close. The latch had been broken for weeks, and Michael had refused to let me get it fixed, saying I didn't need to go anywhere without him anyway. Now it hung open like a broken wing, and I couldn't even lock myself inside. My phone was dead. The gas station attendant had looked at me through bulletproof glass and shrugged when I asked to use their phone. Policy, he'd said, not meeting my eyes. I was standing there, shaking from cold and fear and rage, when I heard boots on pavement. Heavy, deliberate, coming toward me. Then he appeared. A white man, completely bald, tattoos covering every visible inch of skin from his knuckles to his jawline. Dark ink that looked like it had stories, prison stories, the kind you don't ask about. He wore a faded denim jacket over a black t-shirt, jeans that had seen better days, and work boots that had seen worse. His face was hard, carved from too many fights and not enough sleep. But his eyes, God, his eyes, were the softest thing about him, tired, watchful, aware of everything. He didn't smile, didn't make small talk, just stopped a respectful distance away and asked, "You need help?" His voice sounded like gravel and exhaustion, like he'd smoked too many cigarettes and said too few words over too many years. I should have said no. Every survival instinct I had screamed at me to get in my broken car and drive away, but something in his tone, not threatening, just factual, just present, made me nod. "Door won't close," I managed to say. He moved closer, and I saw the details. Tattoos that weren't decorative. They were markers. Dates, names, symbols I didn't understand but knew meant something. His hands were massive, scarred across the knuckles with cuts that looked fresh from construction work. He examined the door latch without touching me, without invading my space, and said, "Got tools in my truck. Hang on." He fixed it in 10 minutes. Didn't ask for money, didn't ask for my name. When he finished, he stepped back and said, "Should hold for now, but get it looked at properly." I tried to thank him, my voice shaking. He just nodded, started to walk away, then stopped. Turned back. "That boyfriend of yours, he gonna come looking for you." I froze. "How did you—" "Saw the way you jumped when I walked up. Saw the bruise on your wrist you keep covering. Saw you checking your phone like you're scared of who might call." He paused. "None of my business, but you're out here alone at 2 a.m. with a broken car. so I'm making it my business. Something in my chest cracked open. This stranger saw me. Really saw me. He might, I whispered. He pulled out his phone. Give me your number. If he shows up, you call me. Don't argue, don't think about it, just call. Yeah? I gave him my number. I don't know why. Maybe because kindness from unexpected places feels like oxygen when you've been drowning. He followed me home in his beat-up truck to make sure you get there safe. When I pulled into my apartment complex and he pulled up behind me, I saw him wait until I was inside, saw him check the parking lot, saw him nod once before driving away. As he walked back to his truck, I noticed the monitoring bracelet on his ankle catching the streetlight. Black plastic. Official. State issued. And I realized I'd just given a stranger my address and my phone number. A stranger who was being electronically tracked by the government. A stranger I already trusted more than the man I'd spent 3 years with. His name was Jake Holloway. I learned that 3 days later when he showed up outside the diner where I worked the graveyard shift with a warning. Your ex was here an hour ago, he said, standing in the parking lot like a sentinel. Sat in his car across the street for 40 minutes watching the building, left when I pulled up. My blood went cold. How did you know where I work? Followed you. He said it plainly, without shame or apology. Figured if he's the type to break a woman's wrist, he's the type to show up where she works. Wanted to make sure you were safe. I should have been furious. Should have called the police. Should have screamed at this tattooed stranger for stalking me. But all I felt was relief. Because Michael had been texting me nonstop. Each message more threatening than the last. And nobody else seemed to care. Thank you, I whispered. Jake nodded. Lock your car, don't leave alone. And if you see him, you call me first, police second, I'll be faster. That's how it started. Jake becoming my shadow. Not intrusive, never pushy, just there. Outside the diner at the end of my shifts. At the bus stop near my apartment in the mornings. At the laundromat on Sunday afternoons when I did my washing. Always at a distance, always watching, never intruding. My coworker Jenny noticed him first. That bald guy with the ink. He's been parked out there for 2 hours. She leaned close, eyes wide with concern. Honey, do you know him? Yeah, I said, surprising myself with how easily the lie came. He's a friend. A friend. Jenny's skepticism was thick enough to cut. That man looks like he could kill someone with his bare hands. She wasn't wrong. Jake was 6'2" of solid muscle, built like someone who'd spent years doing hard labor. His arms were covered in dark ink, skulls, dates, barbed wire, an eagle with spread wings across his shoulders that I'd glimpsed when his jacket shifted. His face had the kind of hardness that came from seeing too much, surviving too much, learning to trust nothing and no one. But with me, he was gentle, careful. He fixed my apartment window latch when he noticed it was broken, carried my groceries when my bag split open in the parking lot, brought me coffee sometimes, always black, always in a paper cup from the gas station where we'd met, like he was recreating that first moment over and over. He didn't talk much. When he did, it was economical. Eat something, you're working too hard, or get some sleep, you look tired. Simple observations delivered without judgment, just concern. I started looking forward to seeing him, started feeling safe for the first time in years. Then Michael escalated. It was a Tuesday night, late shift, only 3 customers in the diner. Michael walked in drunk, stumbling, his face red with rage. There you are, you ungrateful bitch! He screamed loud enough that everyone turned. You think you can just leave me? Ignore my calls. I gave you everything. I backed up against the counter, heart hammering. My manager reached for the phone. The customers froze. Before anyone could move, Jake was there. I don't know how he got inside so fast. 1 second the door was closed. The next he was standing between me and Michael like a wall made of muscle and threat. He didn't touch Michael, didn't raise his voice, just stood there, absolutely still, and said in that gravel-rough voice, "She asked you to leave." Michael tried to push past him. "Who the hell are you? This is between me and my girlfriend." Ex-girlfriend, Jake corrected, his voice dropping to something dangerous. "And I'm the guy telling you to walk out that door before this gets ugly." Something in Jake's tone, the absolute certainty, the barely leashed violence, made Michael step back. He pointed at me, his finger shaking. "This isn't over. Then he stumbled out, still shouting threats. Jake waited until Michael's car pulled away, then turned to me. "You okay?" I nodded, unable to speak. My hands were shaking so badly I had to grip the counter. Jake walked me to my car at the end of my shift, checked the back seat, watched me lock the doors. As I started the engine, my manager Carol appeared at his window. I couldn't hear what she said, but I saw her face. Worried. Warning. When I got home, I texted Carol. "What did you tell him?" Her response came immediately. "Be careful with that one, sweetie. That's Jake Holloway. Just got out of Pelican Bay State Prison. Armed robbery. He served 7 years." I looked him up. I sat in my dark apartment, staring at my phone, my hands still shaking. 7 years. Armed robbery. Prison. The man who'd been protecting me was an ex-convict, and I'd let him into my life without even knowing his last name. I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Carol's words echoing in my head. Pelican Bay. 7 years. Armed robbery. At 3 a.m., I gave up and grabbed my laptop. The search results loaded slowly, each one a punch to the gut. News articles from 7 years ago. Local man sentenced in violent gas station robbery. Mugshot. Jake Holloway, age 25, staring into the camera with dead eyes and fresh bruises. The details were worse. A gas station clerk hospitalized with a skull fracture, $12,000 stolen, a high-speed chase. Jake arrested 3 blocks from his sister's apartment, where police found the money and the weapon. The prosecuting attorney had called him a dangerous individual with no regard for human life. The judge had called him a menace to society. 7 to 10 years, eligible for parole after 5 with good behavior. He'd served the full 7. I read every article twice, looked at his mugshot until I'd memorized every detail. This was the man who brought me coffee, who fixed my window, who stood between me and Michael without hesitation. This was the man I'd trusted. When he showed up the next morning with coffee, he always brought coffee, always at 7 a.m. and before I left for my morning cleaning job. I couldn't pretend anymore. "Were you ever going to tell me?" My voice came out harder than I intended. Jake stopped on my doorstep, paper cup in hand. He didn't ask what I meant, didn't pretend confusion, just set the coffee down carefully and said, "Yeah, I was waiting for the right time." He paused. "And guess there isn't one." 7 years, I said. "Armed robbery. You put a man in the hospital." I did. No excuses. No deflection. Just acknowledgement. "Why?" I demanded. "Why did you do it?" Jake leaned against the doorframe, and for the first time since I'd met him, he looked tired. Not physically tired. Soul tired. My little sister needed surgery. Appendix burst. Turned septic. She was 19, no insurance, and the hospital wanted $15,000 upfront. I was working construction, making barely enough to cover our rent. I asked everyone I knew for help. Got nothing. He rubbed his face. So I made a choice. A stupid, desperate choice. Thought I'd hit a gas station late at night. Figured nobody'd get hurt. But the clerk tried to be a hero, pulled a bat, and my partner... He stopped. Guy I was with, he panicked. Hit the clerk before I could stop him. Everything went sideways after that. "Your partner," I repeated. "Where is he?" "Got out 2 years before me. Good behavior. Testified against me for a reduced sentence. Said I planned the whole thing, that I was the one who hit the clerk." Jake's jaw tightened. I took the plea deal. Figured 7 years was better than fighting it and risking 15. I felt like I couldn't breathe. "And your sister?" "She lived. Got her surgery through emergency Medicaid while I was awaiting trial. She's in Oregon now, married, has a kid. Doesn't talk to me anymore. Can't blame her." His voice was flat, emotionless. I destroyed her life trying to save it. We stood in silence. I wanted to be angry, to tell him to leave, to slam the door and never see him again. That's what everyone would tell me to do. That's what I should do. But when I looked at him, really looked at him, I didn't see a violent criminal. I saw a man who'd made a desperate choice in an impossible situation. A man who'd paid for it with 7 years of his life. A man who was trying, every single day, to be better than his worst moment. "I'm not asking you to forget what I did," Jake said quietly. "I'm not asking you to forgive it either. I'm just asking if you can see who I'm trying to be now. I thought about Michael, who'd never been to prison but hurt me every day, who had every opportunity, every advantage, and chose cruelty. Then I thought about Jake, who'd lost everything and was rebuilding with nothing but determination and honesty. I see you, I whispered. He looked at me, confusion crossing his face. Then why do you look so scared? That's the problem, I said. Because now I can't unsee you. I don't understand. I see a man who made a mistake 7 years ago and has been paying for it every day since. I see someone who's trying so hard to be good that it hurts to watch. My voice cracked. I see someone worth believing in, and that terrifies me. The silence between us felt like a promise we were both afraid to make. Jake started to leave. I'll stay away, he said. You don't need my problems. Wait. The word came out before I could stop it. What if I want you to stay? He turned back, hope and disbelief warring on his face. That night, Michael broke into my apartment. The window Jake had fixed. Michael shattered it, climbed through, trashed my living room looking for God knows what. I called 911. Then I called Jake. He was there in 4 minutes. The police took 20. Jake arrived before I'd finished giving the 911 operator my address. I heard his truck screech into the parking lot, heard his boots pounding up the stairs, and then he was at my door, breathing hard, eyes wild with something I'd never seen before. Fear. For me. You okay? His hands hovered near my shoulders, not touching but wanting to. Did he hurt you? I wasn't here, I managed. I was at the laundromat, came back and found... I gestured at the destruction. Couch cushions slashed open, dishes smashed, my laptop destroyed. And on the mirror, written in what I desperately hoped was red lipstick, "You're mine." Jake's expression went cold, not angry cold, something worse, calculated. He pulled out his phone and started taking pictures of everything. The broken window, the message, the destruction. Evidence, he said. For the restraining order you're filing tomorrow. I tried that already. The judge said I didn't have enough proof of threat. You do now. He was methodical, photographing every angle, documenting everything with the precision of someone who understood how the legal system worked from the inside. When the police arrived, 2 officers who looked barely old enough to drink. Their expressions changed the second they saw Jake. Hands went to weapons. Postures shifted. Sir, step away from the victim. I'm the one who called you, Jake said evenly, hands visible, non-threatening. I'm here at her request. Name. Jake Holloway. I watched the younger cop run the name through his radio, watched his expression change when the response came back. Ex-con, armed robbery, parole. Mr. Holloway, what's your relationship to the victim? Friend, I interrupted, stepping between them. He's my friend. I called him after I called 911. The man who did this is my ex-boyfriend, Michael Chen. He's been harassing me for 2 weeks. Jake has been helping me document it. It took an hour to give statements, file the report, get the crime scene photos. The officers kept looking at Jake like he was the perpetrator instead of the help. When they finally left, Jake tried to leave too. I should go, he said. Me being here just complicates things. They already think... Stay. The word came out desperate. Please, just sit with me for a while. So we sat in my tiny, destroyed living room, drinking tea from the 2 mugs Michael hadn't smashed. And for the first time, Jake really talked. He told me about prison. Not the violence, he glossed over that, but the monotony. 7 years of the same routine. Wake up, work detail, meals, count, sleep. Every day, exactly the same. He'd learned carpentry in the prison workshop, got his GED, took every rehabilitation program they offered. Figured if I was going to lose 7 years, I might as well come out better than I went in. He told me about his parole officer, a woman named Mrs. Rodriguez who actually believed in second chances. She got me the construction job, helped me find my apartment, checks in every week, makes sure I'm staying clean. He smiled faintly. She's tough, doesn't accept excuses, but she's fair. His apartment was a studio in a rough part of town, all he could afford on a construction worker's salary with a felony record. It's not much. Single room, bathroom barely big enough to turn around in a hot plate instead of a stove. But it's mine. I pay my own rent. Nobody can take it away. I heard the pride in his voice. This man who'd lost everything was rebuilding from nothing, and every small victory, an apartment, a job, a clean record, meant everything. What about friends? I asked. Family? He shook his head. Lost touch with most people inside. The ones who wrote the first year stopped by year 3. My sister won't talk to me. Parents died while I was in car accident my second year. I wasn't allowed to go to the funeral. His voice stayed steady, but I saw the pain in his eyes. So no. No family, few acquaintances from work, but nobody who'd call if I didn't show up one day. The loneliness in that statement broke my heart. I'd call, I said quietly. He looked at me, really looked at me, and something shifted in his expression. Vulnerability, hope, terror. Why? You don't even know me. I know enough. I reached across the couch and touched his hand. His skin was rough, scarred from work and fighting and survival. But warm, alive, real. He stared at our hands like he'd forgotten what kindness felt like. When he looked up, his eyes were bright. Thank you. For what? For seeing me as more than a number, more than a conviction. I opened my mouth to respond, but a knock at the door made us both freeze. A man's voice, cold and familiar. Jake Holloway, I know you're in there. Marcus sends his regards, and he says to tell you, we're not done. Jake's entire body went rigid. I'd never seen him scared before. Careful, watchful, alert, but never scared. Now terror flickered across his face before he locked it down. Stay here, he said quietly, standing. Don't open the door. But I followed him anyway, peeking around his shoulder as he checked the peephole. A man stood in the hallway, expensive suit, slicked back hair, the kind of person who looked like he belonged in a boardroom, not an apartment complex in the bad part of town. Jake opened the door just enough to block my view. What do you want, Derek? Not me who wants something. The man's voice was smooth, educated, dangerous in a different way than Jake. Marcus does. Says you owe him. Says it's time to pay up. I don't owe him anything. I did my time. We're square. Derek laughed, cold and sharp. That's not how Marcus sees it. You took the fall for him, yeah, but you also kept your mouth shut about the other jobs, about the money he's got stashed, about the people who helped him. He leaned closer. That silence is worth something, and he's calling in the debt. Tell Marcus I'm out, done, not interested. He figured you'd say that. That's why he wanted me to mention the girl. Derek's eyes found mine over Jake's shoulder. Pretty thing. Be a shame if something happened to her because you couldn't be a team player. Jake moved so fast I barely saw it. 1 second, Derek was smiling. The next, he was against the hallway wall with Jake's forearm across his throat. You don't look at her. You don't think about her. You go back to Marcus and tell him I'm not that person anymore. Can't change what you are, Holloway. Derek wheezed, but he was still smiling. Ex-con, parolee. One mistake from going back inside. Marcus knows that. I know that. And now your little girlfriend knows it too. Jake released him, stepping back. We're done here. Derek straightened his suit, still smiling that cold smile. You got 48 hours to change your mind. After that, Marcus makes decisions for you. He looked at me again. Nice meeting you, sweetheart. The second the door closed, Jake was pacing, running his hands over his head, breathing hard. I'd never seen him lose composure before. Who's Marcus? I demanded. My cellmate. The guy who actually hit the clerk during the robbery. Jake's voice was bitter. The guy who testified against me to get early release. The guy I protected because I was young and stupid and thought loyalty meant something. What does he want? Me back in the life. Back doing jobs for him. He got out 6 months before me. Built up some kind of operation. I don't know what, don't want to know. But he needs people he can trust. People who won't talk. People with experience. Jake stopped pacing. People like me. You said no, so it's over. It's never over with guys like Marcus. Jake's expression was haunted. He doesn't take no for an answer. He'll push. He'll threaten. He looked at me. He'll use you to get to me. The weight of that settled over us. I wasn't just dealing with Michael anymore. Now there was a bigger, more dangerous threat, because I'd let Jake into my life, because he'd tried to help me. I'd become a target. There's more, Jake said quietly. And the robbery we got caught for? That wasn't the first one. Marcus and we did 3 others before that. Small stuff, never caught. But I know where he kept records, photos, evidence. If that ever comes out, I could be charged as an accomplice. More time, and this time, no parole. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know what you're getting into by being around me. I'm not just an ex-con trying to go straight. I'm a guy with a past that won't let him go. With debts I never agreed to pay. With enemies who know my weaknesses. He looked at me with such pain it hurt to witness. And my biggest weakness right now is you. I should have been terrified. Should have told him to leave and never come back. But all I could think was, this man spent 7 years in prison and came out better than he went in. This man is being threatened and his first thought is protecting me. So what do we do? I asked. We? He looked stunned. You're not. You should run. Far and fast. I'm not running. Not from Michael. Not from Marcus. Not from whatever this is. I stepped closer. You said I was your weakness. Well, you're mine too, so we figure this out together. Before he could argue, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. A man's voice, cold and amused. Hello, sweetheart. This is Marcus. Jake there. Tell him we need to have a conversation. Soon. The line went dead. Jake's phone buzzed. A photo. Me, leaving the diner last night. The message underneath, 48 hours. Jake went to the police the next morning. I tried to go with him, but he insisted I stay home, stay safe. They already don't trust me, he said. If you're there, they'll think I'm using you as a shield. He was gone for 4 hours. When he came back, he looked defeated. They can't do anything. Marcus is technically clean. No record, at least not under his real name. The threats weren't explicit enough. And the photo... Jake's jaw clenched. They said it's a public place. Not illegal to photograph someone on the street. They advised me to file a restraining order, but without proof of direct contact, it won't hold. What about your parole officer? Told her everything. She's documenting it. But her hands are tied too. One of my parole conditions is no association with known criminals. If I'm seen with Marcus, even if he approaches me, I violate parole. The bitter irony hung in the air. He's got me in a corner. If I go to him, I violate parole. If I don't, he comes after you. We spent that day turning my apartment into a fortress. Jake installed new locks, a security bar for the door, motion sensor lights outside. He set up a camera pointed at the parking lot, cheap one from the hardware store, but better than nothing. He made me memorize his parole officer's number, the non-emergency police line, the address of the nearest police station. If anything happens to me, he said, you call Mrs. Rodriguez first. She'll help you. Nothing's going to happen to you. You don't know that. His voice was heavy with truth. Marcus is smart. He'll set something up. Make it look like I violated parole. Get me sent back. Or worse, he'll arrange something that forces me to choose between going back to prison or watching you get hurt. That night, Michael escalated too. He'd somehow found out about Jake, probably saw him at my apartment or the diner, and started a social media campaign. Posted photos of Jake's mugshot. Made posts about how I was shacking up with a violent felon. Tagged my workplace, my friends, my family. My mother called, crying. Is it true? Are you seeing a criminal? He's not. It's complicated, Mom. Come home, please. This is dangerous. My coworkers whispered. Jenny pulled me aside, eyes worried. I know you said he's a friend, but honey, people are talking. The manager is getting complaints. Some customers saw the posts and are uncomfortable. I was being squeezed from all sides. Marcus threatening Jake, Michael destroying my reputation, society judging me for trusting a man who'd paid his debt. I felt like I was drowning. Then it got worse. Jake's construction site got an anonymous tip about an ex-con working there. His boss called him in, apologetic but firm. It's a liability issue. We work on government contracts. Can't have someone with your record on the payroll. I'm sorry. Jake lost his job on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, his parole officer was knocking on his door about a violation report. Someone claimed they saw him with known criminals at a bar. Jake had been home alone, but proving it was impossible. One more violation and you're done, Mrs. Rodriguez said. She believed him, but her belief didn't change the system. They're setting you up, Jake. Whoever this Marcus is, he's playing chess while you're playing checkers. I found Jake sitting in his truck outside my apartment that night, staring at nothing. When I climbed in beside him, he didn't look at me. "You should end this," he said quietly, "before it costs you everything." "End what?" "Whatever this is between us. This friendship, this whatever we're becoming. I'm poison. Everything I touch turns toxic." "That's not true. Look at the evidence. You've got your ex harassing you, my ex-cellmate threatening you. You're being judged at work. Your family is terrified. All because you were kind to me that night at the gas station." His voice cracked. "I should have just fixed your door and walked away. But you didn't." I reached for his hand. "You stayed. You protected me. You cared when nobody else did. And look where it got you. It got me someone who sees me. Someone who doesn't want to control me or own me or change me. Someone who just wants me to be safe and happy." I squeezed his hand. "Don't you get it? You're the first good thing that's happened to me in years." He finally looked at me, eyes bright with unshed tears. "I don't deserve you. Maybe not. But I'm choosing you anyway." We sat in silence, hands intertwined, until his phone buzzed. Marcus again. Another photo, this time of Jake's sister's house in Oregon, her kid playing in the yard. The message, 24 hours. "You know what I want." Jake closed his eyes. "He's going after my family now." And I realized we were out of time and out of options. Then the police cars pulled into the parking lot, lights flashing. Someone had reported a domestic disturbance at my apartment. When the officers saw Jake, saw his parole status, saw the violation reports in the system, they put him in handcuffs. "Wait," I screamed. "He didn't do anything." But they were already reading him his rights, already loading him into the car. Mrs. Rodriguez arrived just as they were leaving. She looked at me, her face grim. "I'll do what I can. But you need to understand. If they find cause to violate his parole, he goes back to prison. And this time, there's no early release. I wasn't helpless. Not anymore." Jake had taught me that. Not with words, but with actions. He'd rebuilt his entire life from nothing. He'd faced his past and kept moving forward. He'd protected me when he had every reason to walk away. Now it was my turn to protect him. They held Jake for 72 hours pending a parole hearing. 72 hours in a holding cell, surrounded by the same concrete walls and metal bars he'd spent 7 years trying to forget. 72 hours of him wondering if this was it, if his second chance was over before it really began. 72 hours of me refusing to accept that this was how our story ended. I used every single minute. First stop, Mrs. Rodriguez's office. I showed up at 8 a.m., sharp eyes before her first appointment, with 2 cups of coffee and a determination that must have shown on my face because she let me in without question. "I need to know everything about Marcus," I said, sitting down across from her desk. "Real name, criminal history, known associates, every detail you have, everything." She hesitated, her hand hovering over a filing cabinet. "I can't just give you confidential information about another parolee. There are privacy laws, ethical considerations. Jake is going back to prison for violations he didn't commit because a criminal is systematically setting him up. You know it. I know it. And if we don't act now, a good man loses everything he's worked for." I leaned forward. "You told me you believe in second chances. You told Jake that yourself. So either help me prove his innocence or watch him go back inside for crimes he didn't commit." Something in my tone, maybe the desperation, maybe the absolute conviction, made her pause. Then she sighed, pulled out a file, and slid it across the desk. "Marcus Rivera, real name Marcus Andrew Chen." She watched my face carefully. "Wait, Chen, is that my ex-boyfriend's last name?" The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. "Oh my God. They're related, aren't they?" Mrs. Rodriguez nodded grimly, flipping through the file. "Cousins. Michael Chen is listed here as a family contact. And look at this. Michael Chen filed the initial violation report claiming he witnessed Jake meeting with his cousin Marcus in a bar on the east side. That's the report that triggered the entire investigation. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. It was a setup. All of it. Michael and Marcus, working together to destroy Jake and hurt me in the process. Two men who couldn't handle rejection, couldn't accept that I'd chosen someone they deemed beneath them, and saw Jake as both a tool for revenge and an obstacle to eliminate. There's more, Mrs. Rodriguez continued, her voice tight. Marcus has been under federal investigation for wire fraud and embezzlement for the past 8 months. The FBI has been building a case, but they need solid evidence. He's smart, covers his tracks well. What kind of fraud? Investment schemes, mostly. Convinces small business owners to invest in his consulting firm. Takes their money. Delivers nothing. By the time they realize it's a scam, he's moved on to the next victim. He's made hundreds of thousands of dollars this way. An idea began forming in my mind. Dangerous? Possibly illegal? Definitely reckless. But I'd watched Jake risk everything for me. Now it was my turn. I spent the next 24 hours barely sleeping, operating on coffee and adrenaline and sheer determination. I started with Jake's former employer, the construction company that had fired him based on the anonymous tip. The owner, Mr. Patterson, was apologetic but firm when I showed up at his office. Look, I feel bad about it, but we can't risk our government contracts. Having someone with Jake's record on the payroll opens us up to liability. What if I could prove he was set up, that the violation reports were fraudulent? He blinked. I'd need to see hard evidence. Give me 48 hours. Next, I went to the bar where Jake was allegedly seen with Marcus and other criminals. The bartender remembered that night, not because Jake was there, but because he wasn't. I know every regular in this place, she said, checking her records. That night was a Thursday, right? We had the game on. Place was packed. I would have noticed a bald guy covered in tattoos. Nobody like that came in. You have security footage. 30-day rolling storage. You're in luck. That was 26 days ago. I watched 3 hours of footage. No Jake. But I did see Marcus, sitting in a corner booth with 2 other men, making a show of looking at the door, checking his phone, acting like he was waiting for someone, setting up an alibi. Then I went to Jake's apartment building. His neighbor, an elderly woman named Mrs. Chen, no relation to Michael, thankfully, had a Ring doorbell that covered both her door and Jake's. He's such a quiet boy, she said when I explained what I needed. Always polite, always helps me with my groceries. I told the police he was home that night, but they didn't seem to care. She pulled up her footage. There was Jake, coming home from work at 6:47 p.m., not leaving until 7:15 the next morning for his shift. Solid alibi, proof he was never at that bar. But the most important piece came from an unexpected source. I tracked down Tom Williams, the gas station clerk from Jake's original robbery 7 years ago. It took me 6 hours of internet searching, 3 wrong numbers, and a lot of persistence, but I finally reached him at his current workplace, manager of a convenience store in a better part of town. I remember Jake Holloway, he said when I explained who I was. His voice was cautious but not hostile. What's this about? He's being set up by his former partner, the one who actually assaulted you. There was a long pause. Marcus Chen. You remember him? Hard to forget the guy who cracked your skull. Tom's voice went hard. Look, I'll tell you what I told the police back then, though they didn't want to hear it. It wasn't Jake who hit me. Jake actually tried to stop it. I saw the whole thing. Marcus panicked when I reached for the silent alarm, grabbed the bat from behind the counter, and swung at me. Jake jumped between us, tried to grab the bat, got his hands on it. That's how his DNA ended up on it. He was trying to protect me, not hurt me. My heart was racing. Would you testify to that, if it came to it? I tried to testify 7 years ago. The prosecutors weren't interested. They had their conviction, their closed case. But yeah, I'd testify now. Jake got a raw deal. He was young, stupid, made a bad choice getting involved in that robbery at all. But he wasn't violent. Marcus was the dangerous one. I thanked him, hung up, and sat in my car shaking. I had everything I needed. Security footage proving Jake was never at the bar. Witness testimony from Tom Williams. Evidence of Marcus's fraud investigation. Phone records I'd subpoenaed showing the pattern of calls between Michael and Marcus in the days leading up to the violation report. But evidence wasn't enough. I needed a confession. Something undeniable that would not only clear Jake, but put Marcus away for good. So I did something crazy. I called Marcus directly. He answered on the third ring, his voice smooth and amused. Well, Jake's little girlfriend. I wondered when I'd hear from you. What can I do for you, sweetheart? I forced my voice to stay steady. Meet me, public place. 1 hour. I have something you want. And what would that be? Evidence that Jake kept from the original robbery, dates, locations, your real name, details about the other jobs you did together, the kind of evidence that could implicate you in 3 other robberies, the kind that could send you away for 20 years. I was bluffing completely, but my voice didn't shake. You want it buried? You meet me. He was quiet for a moment, calculating. Then, coffee shop on 5th and Main, 1 hour, come alone. I wasn't stupid enough to actually come alone. Mrs. Rodriguez met me 30 minutes before the meeting, in the parking lot behind the coffee shop. She handed me a small wire, the kind detectives use on television. This is completely off the books, she said quietly. I could lose my job for this. But Jake deserves better than what he's getting. Get him to talk about the setup. Get him to admit to threatening you. Get him to say anything incriminating about the fraud investigation. My hands shook as I fitted the wire under my shirt. What if he searches me? Public place? Lots of witnesses. He won't risk it. She met my eyes. You're brave for doing this, but you're also putting yourself in danger. If things go wrong, they won't. They had to work. I had no other options. Marcus showed up looking every inch the successful businessman. Expensive suit, Italian shoes, watch that probably cost more than my car. He slid into the booth across from me with that same cold smile, looking completely relaxed. You're braver than I thought, he said, ordering an espresso from the passing waitress. Or stupider, haven't decided which yet. I want you to leave Jake alone. Drop the violation reports, stop the harassment, leave town, whatever it takes to get you out of our lives. In exchange for the evidence Jake kept, and my silence about everything I know. He laughed, stirring sugar into his coffee with deliberate slowness. You don't have anything. You're bluffing. Jake was too scared back then to keep records, and he's too smart now to create evidence that could send him back inside. Am I bluffing? Jake was young and terrified when you made him take the fall. But he wasn't stupid. He kept insurance, dates, locations, photos, your real name before you started going by Rivera, everything about the 3 robberies you pulled before the one that got you caught. I leaned forward. He told me where he hid it, and I found it. Marcus's smile faded slightly. Even if that were true, which it's not, you can't use it without implicating Jake. You'd be sending your boyfriend back to prison. I don't care about 7-year-old robberies. I care about getting you out of our lives permanently. So here's the deal. You disappear, drop all charges, leave the state, or I go to the FBI with everything. I pulled out my phone, showing him a photo of documents I'd carefully fabricated that morning. I've also got evidence about your fraud schemes, the businesses you've scammed, the money you've hidden, and I've got phone records showing you coordinated with your cousin Michael to set Jake up on false violation charges. His jaw tightened. You're making a very big mistake. The only mistake I made was underestimating how far I'd go to protect someone I love. The words came out before I could stop them. Love. I love Jake. I was in love with an ex-convict, and I didn't care who knew it. Marcus saw the realization on my face and laughed. Cruel and sharp. You stupid, stupid girl. You actually fell for him. You think love protects you? It doesn't. It makes you weak. It makes you a target. It makes you dangerous, I interrupted. It makes me dangerous. Because I've got nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. You think you're the scary one? You're just a coward who lets other people take the fall for your crimes. Jake served 7 years for what you did. He protected you even when you testified against him. And how did you repay him? By threatening him. By coming after me. By trying to destroy the life he's rebuilt. I slid a folder across the table. Inside were copies of everything. The security footage, Tom Williams's statement, the phone records, evidence of his fraud schemes that I'd pieced together from public records and internet searches. Read it, I said quietly. Then decide if destroying Jake is worth destroying yourself. Marcus opened the folder. I watched his face go from amused to confused to pale. He read every page, his hands starting to shake slightly by the end. This is... He looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Where did you get this? Does it matter? The FBI gets a copy in 48 hours unless you disappear. Your choice, Marcus. Your freedom or your revenge. What's it going to be? He stood up abruptly, the folder clutched in his hand. You have no idea what you've started. Actually, I'm finishing what you started when you decided Jake was an easy target. I stayed seated, forcing myself to appear calm even though my heart was hammering. 48 hours. Then I mail everything to the FBI field office, the district attorney, and every news outlet in the city. Run, Marcus. It's what cowards do best. He leaned down, his face close to mine, voice dropping to a threatening whisper. You think you've won. You think this is over. I will destroy you. I will destroy him. I will make you wish you'd never... Is there a problem here? The barista had appeared at our table, phone in hand, clearly ready to call the police. Marcus straightened, his businessman mask sliding back into place. No problem, just leaving. He looked at me one more time. This isn't over. But his voice lacked conviction. He was scared. I'd actually scared him. I waited until he left, counted to 60, then walked out on shaking legs. Mrs. Rodriguez was waiting in her car, headphones on, listening to the wire feed. When I climbed into the passenger seat, she was smiling. You got him. He admitted to coordinating with Michael, confirmed the threats, and basically confessed to setting Jake up. She held up her phone. I've already forwarded this to the FBI contact I know. They've been waiting for a break in the Marcus Chen case. What happens now? Now we wait. But I'm getting Jake released tonight. This wire recording is enough to drop the parole violation charges. I burst into tears. Relief, exhaustion, fear, triumph. Everything hit me at once. Mrs. Rodriguez squeezed my hand. You did good, kid. You saved him. But as we sat there, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. See you soon. Marcus wasn't giving up, and I realized with cold certainty, this wasn't over. The final confrontation was coming, and I'd just painted a target on my back. Jake was released at 9 p.m. that night. I was waiting outside the detention center, pacing the parking lot, checking my phone every 30 seconds even though Mrs. Rodriguez had told me exactly what time to expect him. When the doors finally opened and he walked out, looking exhausted, rumpled, but free, I ran to him. He caught me, lifted me off my feet, buried his face in my hair. What did you do? He whispered. Mrs. Rodriguez said you got evidence, but she wouldn't tell me details. What did you do? I'll explain everything, but first, I pulled back to look at him. Are you okay? 72 hours in holding felt like 72 years after being out for 6 months. But yeah, I'm okay now. He cupped my face in his hands. You shouldn't have risked yourself for me. Too late. Already did. We started walking to my car, his arm around my shoulders, me leaning into his warmth and solidity. I was explaining everything, the evidence I'd gathered, Tom Williams's testimony, the wire recording with Marcus, when I noticed the black SUV parked in the shadows at the edge of the lot. Jake noticed it too. His entire body went tense. Get in the car, now! But before we could move, the SUV's doors opened. Marcus stepped out, flanked by 2 men who looked like they broke bones for a living. Big, professional, the kind of guys who didn't need weapons because they were weapons. Jake Holloway, Marcus called out, his voice echoing across the empty parking lot. We need to have a conversation. There's nothing to talk about. It's over, Marcus. Over? You think your little girlfriend's wire recording ends this? Marcus laughed, but there was an edge of desperation in it. That recording is inadmissible. Obtained without my consent, no warrant, no official police presence. My lawyer already confirmed it. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to get those original documents back from whoever has them. You're going to make this all go away. Or, he didn't get to finish. Police cars poured into the parking lot from 3 different directions, lights flashing, sirens wailing. Not local police, federal agents and FBI windbreakers, moving with tactical precision. Marcus's face went white. What the hell? Marcus Andrew Chen, you're under arrest for wire fraud, embezzlement, witness intimidation, conspiracy to file false police reports, and violation of federal racketeering laws. The lead agent approached with handcuffs. You have the right to remain silent. I watched in stunned silence as they cuffed Marcus and his two associates. One of the agents approached us, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense expression. "Miss Parker, Agent Linda Martinez, Mrs. Rodriguez contacted me 6 hours ago with your evidence. Combined with our existing investigation, we had enough for arrest warrants." She nodded to Jake. "Mr. Holloway, you're free to go. All parole violation charges have been dropped. We'll need statements from both of you, but that can wait until tomorrow." "What about Michael Chen?" I asked. "Picked up an hour ago for conspiracy and harassment charges. The restraining order you filed, combined with evidence of his coordination with Marcus, was enough." She handed me a business card. "You did good work. Ever think about a career in investigation?" As the FBI cars drove away with Marcus in custody, Jake and I stood in the parking lot, holding each other, trying to process what had just happened. "It's really over," he said, sounding like he couldn't quite believe it. "Marcus is gone. Michael is gone. It's actually over." "It's over," I confirmed, and then I kissed him. Right there in the parking lot, under the fluorescent lights, with detention center security cameras probably recording everything. I didn't care. I'd spent weeks being afraid, being judged, being threatened. Now I was free. We were both free. The kiss started soft and became something more. Desperate, relieved, full of everything we'd been too scared to say out loud. When we finally pulled apart, he was smiling.
Really smiling, the kind of smile that reached his eyes and made him look younger, lighter, like 7 years of weight had finally lifted. "I'm unemployed, on parole for another 18 months, and probably undateable by any reasonable standard," he said. "Good thing I'm unreasonable. We didn't get a fairy tale. The next 6 months were hard in ways I hadn't anticipated." Jake struggled to find work with his record. Most places saw armed robbery and stopped reading. He applied to 43 jobs before finally getting hired by a small construction company run by a former addict named Ray, who believed in second chances. "I've been where you are," Ray told him on his first day. "Society writes you off, but that doesn't mean you have to write yourself off. Work hard, show up on time, stay clean, and you've got a future here." Jake worked 12-hour days, 6 days a week, taking every shift he could get. He saved every penny, living on ramen and determination, slowly building something solid. I watched him transform from someone who was just surviving to someone who was actually living, taking pride in his work, making friends with his co-workers, planning for a future that extended beyond next week. But it wasn't easy for me either. I faced judgment everywhere. My mother didn't speak to me for 2 months after she learned I was dating Jake. When she finally called, she cried and begged me to come to my senses. "He's a criminal, honey. He went to prison. What kind of future can you have with someone like that?" "A real one," I told her. "More real than anything I had with Michael." Friends drifted away. Some ghosted me completely. Others made their disapproval clear with pointed comments and concerned looks. My co-worker Jenny stopped inviting me to girls' nights. My college roommate unfriended me on social media after I posted a photo of Jake and me together. The isolation hurt. But every time I doubted my choice, I'd remember Jake showing up in 4 minutes when Michael broke into my apartment. I'd remember him protecting me even when it meant risking his freedom. I'd remember the way he looked at me, like I was precious, like I mattered, like my happiness was worth fighting for. 3 months after Marcus's arrest, Jake came home from work with news. "Ray's expanding the business. He wants to make me a supervisor. It's a promotion, better pay, actual benefits." He looked stunned, like he couldn't quite believe someone trusted him with responsibility. "That's amazing!" "There's more." He asked if I'd be interested in getting my contractor's license eventually, said he'd help me study for it, that he sees potential in me. Jake's voice cracked. Nobody's ever said that before, that they see potential in me. I hugged him tight, feeling his tears on my shoulder. This man who'd survived prison, who'd rebuilt his entire life from nothing, who faced rejection and judgment every single day. He deserved this moment. He deserved someone believing in him. We started looking for a place together. Nothing fancy, we couldn't afford fancy, but somewhere that was ours. We found a small house on the edge of town, a fixer-upper that the landlord was willing to rent cheap because it needed work. Jake saw potential where I saw problems. I can fix the porch, replace those rotted boards, update the bathroom, paint everything, he said, walking through the house with the kind of focus he brought to every project. It'd give me 3 months and this place will be beautiful. He was right. Jake spent every spare moment working on that house, turning it from a rundown rental into a home. He built furniture with the carpentry skills he'd learned in prison, a kitchen table, bookshelves, a bed frame, all crafted with such care and precision that they looked professional. Every piece was evidence that he'd turned his worst years into something beautiful. My mother finally visited 6 months into our relationship. She'd been resistant, afraid, convinced I was making the biggest mistake of my life. But when she saw the house Jake had transformed, saw the furniture he'd built, saw the way he treated me, with respect, with kindness, with genuine partnership, something shifted. "You really love her," she said to Jake while I was in the kitchen making coffee. I heard his response from the other room. "More than I thought I could love anything. She saved my life, not just by helping clear my name. She saved my life by seeing me as more than my worst mistake. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of that." Mom was crying when I came back with the coffee. She hugged me tight and whispered, "I was wrong. I'm sorry." One evening in October, almost a year after we'd met in that gas station parking lot, Jake and I were sitting on the porch he'd rebuilt with his own hands. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, and everything felt peaceful in a way I'd never experienced before. "I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop," he said quietly, holding my hand. "For you to wake up and realize you could do so much better than an ex-con with a parole officer and a criminal record. I don't want better. I want real. And you're the most real thing I've ever known." He pulled out a small wooden box from his pocket. It was beautiful, carved with intricate patterns, polished until it gleamed. "I made this in prison. Took me 6 months, working in the wood shop during my free time. Didn't know who I'd give it to, but I knew it would mean something someday. Knew it would go to someone important." He opened the box. Inside was a ring, also wooden, also handmade, simple but beautiful. "Oak," he told me later, "because it represented strength and endurance. I can't afford a diamond. Can't promise you easy or comfortable or socially acceptable, but I can promise that I'll spend every single day trying to be worthy of the trust you put in me. I can promise that I'll protect you, support you, choose you over and over again." His voice shook. "I can promise that loving you is the best thing I've ever done with my second chance. So, if you're crazy enough to say yes, will you marry me?" I couldn't speak through the tears. Could only nod, laughing and crying at the same time as he slipped that wooden ring onto my finger. We got married at the courthouse on a cold December morning. Mrs. Rodriguez was our witness, beaming with pride. Tom Williams drove 3 hours to be there, shaking Jake's hand and saying, "I always knew you were a good man who made a bad choice. Glad you got the chance to prove it." Jake's sister Rachel reached out a week before the wedding. The call was awkward at first, 7 years of silence creating a chasm between them. But she cried when Jake told her he was getting married. "I was wrong to cut you out," she said. "And I was angry and scared, and I blamed you for everything. But you paid your debt, you served your time, and I should have been there when you got out. I'm sorry." "I'm sorry too," Jake replied. "Sorry I put you through that. Sorry I made choices that hurt you. Can I meet her, your fiancée?" Rachel and her family came to the wedding. It wasn't perfect reconciliation. There were still hurts to heal, trust to rebuild, but it was a start. Her 5-year-old daughter, Maya, was fascinated by Jake's tattoos and asked him a million questions. Watching him with his niece, patient and gentle, showing her the bird tattoo on his forearm, I fell in love with him all over again. Our wedding wasn't fancy. No expensive venue, no elaborate decorations, no three-tier cake. Just us, our small circle of people who believed in second chances and vows we wrote ourselves. "I promise to see you," I said, hands shaking as I read from my tear-stained paper. "Not as society defines you, not as your past labels you, but as you truly are. I promise to be your partner, your advocate, your safe place. I promise that when the world forgets your worth, I'll remind you, and I promise to build a future with you that's bigger than both our pasts." Jake's vows were simple. "I promise to spend every day earning your trust. I promise to protect what we're building. I promise that your faith in me won't be misplaced. And I promise that loving you will always be my greatest redemption." Our life after the wedding wasn't a fairy tale. Jake still had nightmares sometimes, waking up in cold sweats, thinking he was back in his cell. I still flinched when someone raised their voice. Muscle memory from too many fights with Michael. We both carried scars, his visible in tattoos and old wounds, mine invisible but just as real. But we carried them together. People still judged us, still whispered when we walked into restaurants, still questioned my sanity for marrying a felon. Strangers on the internet, after a local news story about Marcus's conviction mentioned Jake's involvement, left comments calling me stupid, desperate, damaged. I stopped reading the comments, stopped caring what strangers thought, because every morning I woke up next to a man who chose honesty, who worked hard, who treated me with respect and love. Every evening we sat on our porch and talked about our days, made plans for our future, dreamed about the life we were building. Jake got his contractor's license 18 months after we married, started his own small business doing renovation work, building a reputation for quality and reliability. Former clients recommended him to others, and slowly his past became less important than his present. I finished my degree in social work and got a job at a re-entry program helping former inmates reintegrate into society. Jake came with me sometimes to speak to the men and women struggling with the same challenges he'd faced. "I won't lie and say it's easy," he told a group of recently released individuals. "Society will judge you. Opportunities will be limited. Some days you'll want to give up, but you get to choose who you become after this. Every single day, you choose. And eventually, those daily choices add up to a life worth living." 5 years after we met, we bought our first house. Actually bought it with a mortgage and a deed and everything. It needed work, of course. Jake saw potential in fixer-uppers the way I saw potential in people. 10 years after we met, we fostered our first child. A teenage boy named Marcus, ironically named after Jake's former cellmate, though this Marcus was nothing like the original. He'd been in the system for 6 years, labeled difficult, passed between homes that gave up on him. "Why do you want to foster me?" Marcus asked during our first meeting, suspicious and guarded. "You know I've got a record, right? Shoplifting, vandalism, truancy. I'm a screw-up." Jake leaned forward. "You know I've got a record too. Armed robbery, 7 years in Pelican Bay. I'm an ex-con." Marcus's eyes went wide. "For real? For real. And I'm here to tell you that your past doesn't have to define your future. If you're willing to put in the work, we're willing to stand beside you while you do it." Marcus lived with us for 3 years before aging out of the system. He's in community college now, studying automotive technology, and he calls Jake every Sunday. Our life isn't perfect. Money is sometimes tight. Old wounds sometimes resurface. We argue about stupid things like everyone else, whose turn it is to do dishes, whether we can afford a new couch, how to handle difficult family dynamics. But we're happy, really, genuinely happy, because Jake Holloway taught me that redemption isn't about erasing your past. It's about building a future in spite of it. It's about making different choices day after day, until those choices become a life. It's about finding someone who sees your worth when the world sees your worst. He's not an ex-con anymore. Not really. He's a man, my husband, my partner in building a life that matters. And I'm not the broken girl crying at a gas station at 2 a.m. I'm a woman who learned that the most dangerous thing you can do is trust yourself to love someone the world says you shouldn't. We chose each other. We keep choosing each other. And that choice, it saved us both. If you made it to the end of this story, let us know in the comments which city you're watching from, and click the yellow bell to subscribe to the channel and support us. Keep the adventure going by clicking on the suggested video on your screen.